What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Sitting with Sean Recover Out Loud, brought to you by the Antisocial Network. Today we got a really special guest. Her name is Jenny Lee. How you doing, Jenny?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm loving the spring weather.
Yeah. And in West Virginia here, it was warm over the weekend, and then Monday hit, and it went temperature dropped, and I'm like, man, it's cold again. Got to throw that hoodie back on.
Same here. It was
Yeah.
like 91 here in Connecticut. Yeah, it's like, oh my God,
Goodness,
summer already?
right? I can go tan.
Yeah. I bet people went to the beach then. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it was really warm here and then Monday hit and I don't know what happened. Mother Nature just decided to turn the temperature down a little bit.
I like that actually. Yeah, you
Yeah.
switched it.
Yeah, she's switching it up. She's moody. She's moody. She doesn't know what she
She
wants.
is.
So Jenny, would you like to give a formal introduction of yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Jenny. I am a teacher in Connecticut. I teach high schoolers in Hartford public schools, and I'm also a habits coach. I focus on developing morning routines as a way to develop the habit of happiness.
Nice.
Yep, that is healing, um, especially for the nervous system. But I think that's my contribution to the world, for creating a happier world. I was just in a place of so much misery, and then just when I was coming out of it, then I realized why was I so miserable? It was because I was um, hmm, in the middle of miserable people too.
Yeah.
It's like we are a lot of people in this world. Most of them are conditioned to be sad and miserable. That is the opposite of the human nature. And I think that's where the problem started, right?
Yeah. Yeah, misery loves company.
Hmm.
And if we put ourselves in the middle of miserable people, we ourselves will turn out miserable. I've been in that situation many times before, and I went out on this venture of finding my peace, and it just changed everything, changed the prospect of my life, and I absolutely love my life now versus before.
Oh, so glad to hear that. You look
Yes,
happy.
thank you. I am. I'm in a great mood. It's a good day. I got all my stones out right here, and I'm just hanging out. Uh, you're the second teacher that I've interviewed today.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I interviewed another teacher from England.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's
That's
pretty
so
wild.
Yeah, if you take a
It's
look at my environment here, it's like, the the walls and some worksheets there as for SAT.
what inspired you to be a teacher?
Oh, what inspired me? That's really interesting. I feel like that is a very good question to kind of like got me thinking, right? Like, okay, did I become a teacher because I wanted to be a teacher, or it was because that's just the path that I was set on,
Mhm.
right? Um, because when I started, when I went to school of education, when I went to college, I didn't even know what I wanted. I was just like doing everything that's the opposite of what my parents told me. Like
Yeah.
they wanted me to be an accountant. It's like, nah, no.
No, I don't
I
want to
think
do
I
that.
just be a teacher. And then they just like, teacher. But like accountants make they make more money, basically.
Yeah.
That's why. But I feel that everyone is a natural teacher. I think each of us is born to be a teacher, right? Like you right now, bringing people over to tell their stories, that's teaching. You're teaching people about other people's stories. And it's like my son, he's just turned 9. And he's a teacher for me, how to be happy, how to be in the moment, right? And like me being a coach, I'm actually really enjoying it because I get to connect with people while I'm teaching them. But you know what? They also, like my clients, are also teaching me,
Yeah.
right? And so I think every one of us is a natural teacher. And as for the profession, Yeah, I do wonder sometimes if that's what I really wanted, to make
Mhm.
money. And if that's like, something that I really wanted to be in, like school settings and like, teaching based on a template. And especially because I don't know, I just don't feel like the education system is actually educating.
Yeah.
I feel that a lot of the things that are being taught is more like programming,
Yeah.
right? That I feel is even separate people's souls from from who they are, separating their true selves. That's how I feel, and I don't actually, honestly, I don't even know why I'm here, sometimes, like because of that, like, like,
Yeah.
yeah,
I inspired this question where you're like, why am I here?
yeah, right. Thank you for that question. So it's like I feel like, am I continuing the system, right? Like, the perpetuation of the system. But I got my own style with my teaching. So I hope that it helps to put some seeds there, because our school system is just the world, right?
Yeah,
But in order for us to find ourselves, there's a journey there,
absolutely.
and I think that's probably everyone's mission in the world.
Yeah, I agree.
Mhm.
First off, I want to say there's a few jobs that are out there that I have complete respect for the people that hold those positions because they're in charge of certain things. And I have a massive amount of respect for teachers because you're in charge of our future, right? You're not just in charge of like molding and developing children, but you're in charge of molding and developing them to become productive members of society and to teach them some of the more valuable things. I mean, honestly, I can't tell you the last time I did math, but
Mhm.
but
Me neither.
yeah. But the thing is you guys are in charge of teaching kids valuable life lessons, and that if you work hard for things, you'll get them in return. So I want to thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you for saying that. That's a very nice acknowledgement.
And I don't think that teachers get the amount of respect that they deserve, to be honest. I really don't.
I noticed that too.
Mhm.
Yeah, but I think, like with me at least, I take whatever is offered to me, and the biggest thing is really I have learned to respect myself, and I have learned to respect my work, and it's all that matters really. But of
Absolutely.
course, love from people like you makes it so much better.
All right.
Yeah.
And then you brought up that everybody is a teacher, and I go into every situation with an open heart and open mind because I know that I need to receive something that person has given me. Whether it's a 5-year old child telling me, hey, that they're not feeling well. Well, I now know that you're not feeling well because of this, or a 99-year-old human being that's teaching me a life lesson or life lessons that they've received over time. If I go into things with an open heart and open mind, I'm going to be able to receive what I need. And if I go closed minded, then I'm not doing myself a service.
I love it. Yes, exactly. And the best teachers I find, animals.
Yes.
They know
Yeah.
how to be themselves. It's like,
Absolutely.
I want to be like that, confident and just be in the moment all the time, like the dogs or the lions and
Yeah.
the birds, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. And then finally, you talked about that you feel like the school system isn't, and I'm going to paraphrase it, isn't teaching valuable lessons. Like they're just contributing to the machine. I agree. I agree. I think that there needs to be something, a restructure done of education of our youth because we're not the system isn't teaching kids how to balance a paycheck, how to pay bills, how to certain things like home ec. I don't even know if home ec is a thing anymore, but that kind of went away. And then these valuable life lessons of how to go out and apply for a job, everything like that. We're teaching our kids to be miserable versus be successful, and what success looks like, because success looks different for everybody.
Yeah, I agree, and especially in public schools, right, where fundings are limited,
Yeah.
and so they have like less to explore in their
Yeah.
lives, like their talents, and so that kind of contributed to yeah, it's like when you don't have an outlet, right, to explore what
Yeah.
your talents are, um, it's hard to like, okay, then you just be doing what everybody else is doing. You're just told to do the work and go through whatever stages, like after uh, high school, right, to college, whether or not you like it. And not everyone is made for college,
Yeah.
right? And so, like all this prescribed life, basically, um, it's expecting everyone to be uniform.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. So it's tough for the kids. It's like me. My work is really teaching SAT prep.
Hmm.
Um, so many of them are not ready for it. Not even ready. It's like the thing is boring.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like teaching them to a test, right? Who
Right.
cares? And it's not even relevant with real life. And so I think that's what I feel is really lacking, and that's really important to be in the education system. Is things that are taught needs to be more heart centered,
Yes.
especially because here, right, in public schools, I don't know if I told you that most of the kids come from rough environments, a lot
Yeah.
of violence, drugs, abuse, and things like that. And so they come to school just like, really need for love, not any more tests and
All right.
assignments and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's tough.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree 100%. I would agree 100%. And nonetheless, I'm sure what you are doing is very impactful to the children that you work with and the people that you work with. So thank you for everything you do.
You're so welcome.
All right. So let's get to the reason we're here. The reason that we're here is to hear your story. Jenny, what
Oh,
was it like? What was it like
hmm.
for you in your bad times?
Oh, all right. So we could definitely start from, I guess, childhood, right? The
Yeah.
culture that I grew up in, the one that I was born in, it was actually really similar to public school, like to public schools in general. They're all this prescription of how you want to be, and you're all boxed, right? And you just have to fit in the box no matter what. If you don't, then we're going to beat you, into the box, whether or not you like it. And so that was pretty much my experience. I was never really, fitting with anybody. Um, and so, yeah, I felt like, I guess, I don't know, I was probably more mature and I liked all the different things that was not really um, a part of the societal code in the environment that I grew up in. That was in Indonesia. And my family, the family that I grew up in, is they're Chinese conservative.
Mhm.
And so Indonesia itself, it's a country that's populated mostly by Muslims, so they're very conservative. And then the Chinese, the family that I grew up in, like they're also pretty conservative. And then I was sent to Catholic school from kindergarten to college, and a Catholic church, right? And so it was all kinds of pressure, judgment, shaming, right? Like the box, like beating you back in the box, like no matter, like every time you express yourself in the wrong way, right? And so everything was very abusive. So I got a lot of physical punishments, emotional punishments on a daily basis. pretty much.
Yeah.
Like at school, corporal punishment is really like the way that things are done over there. You know, big rulers that they will swing on the students' bodies. It's crazy. Yeah. And then I did so bad at school. Um, I of course, like who would want to be in an environment like that, right? It's like, okay,
Yeah.
other kids were doing well academically, but I did really poorly, and so I was abused even more by the teacher, right, emotionally and physically too. And then I would go home and my parents would learn about how I did at school and I would get punished again.
Jeez.
Yeah. And so my sanctuary really was just the library. So I could just hide from the world, like, from everywhere. I got lost in the stories and um, whatever inspiration that I could get, because it gave me hope,
Mhm.
right? But the process of years and years of the rejection, the abuse, the punishments, um, it really made me not know, like I got lost, right? Like, in like, okay, I need to fit in, like I need to do this so I don't get punished. And that, like, I was walking on eggshells all the time.
Mhm.
And so that my nervous system was like really like it was
Yeah.
dysregulated because of that. And for years I didn't even realize that's what it was happening to me, but like I didn't have any social skills, right? Because, well, when you're in an
Yeah.
environment where everybody's judging you,
Yeah.
it's like it's so safe to just be quiet and not say anything and not say what you want, because every time I said, whenever I asked for something, ah, why do you even have to ask that? Like, you're a girl, you're a woman, you're supposed to just be quiet and take what you're given, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that was pretty much how I grew up. And women, especially in the culture that I grew up in, like they don't belong to themselves. Their bodies and their lives, they belong to, say, if you're married, then you belong to your husbands, and your body is not for yours. Like, it belongs to your husband. Like for the pleasure, or like to build a family. So it's all like it was an environment that was just really, really unhealthy, at
Yeah.
least for me. But yeah, that kind of the although through the stories and inspiration that I got, that kind of helped me. It did help me to create, like, this world inside my head, right? That the ideal world that I want to be. And you know what? I was catapulted to that ideal world that I've created, like, through, I don't know, the visions that I got from the stories and the movies and the TV series that I was watching. I mean, here I am in the US and I'm very, very grateful for it. Um, and but I was still carrying that wounded child from Indonesia. Right? And I was married. Um, and interestingly, well, even before that, okay, well, because I was never really belonging. I never belonged to anywhere, right? Like, I was always a misfit, was always judged. And so I never really got any love from anybody, even my parents, because my parents were pretty punishing too. They never hug. They was like, okay, as a child, these are your obligations, do that. And if,
Yeah.
if you, if you went astray, then there'll be punishment. So
Yeah.
that's what it felt like. And so, yeah, because of that, I was always like seeking for approvals, for love, all in the wrong places, toxic relationships, right?
Yeah.
And then because all the well, okay, all the punishments, and also, of course, boredom, right, from school and all of that, I was never present. I was never in my body.
Yeah.
Um, and so that was the biggest thing, actually, that I've just recently learned, to be present within myself, right, in my body. But at that point, I, like, my addiction to relationships, although they're so toxic, that was because I just wanted the sex.
Yeah.
Because that was the only time when I felt like, oh, I could be in my body,
Yeah.
you know? So that was, yeah, I think that was the reason, and sometimes I kind of felt like, it's still kind of, I still catch that within myself, but that was because I was just unhappy. I felt unloved, rejected. And that addiction was to compensate
Yeah.
that lack of love, right?
Yeah.
And then I moved to the US. Um, well, actually, I had been married before I moved to the US. Um, yeah, I got pregnant, and I had then I was a new mother. But um, being a mother, right? There's like the previous conditioning of the expectations of being a mother. You have to be everything, right? You could be exhausted, you could be tired and busy, but you still have to look pretty because you're the glue that holds the family together. Well, I mean, I guess somehow it is true, but at that point, I was super exhausted because I also was teaching. But then I would come home and I would be the cook, the cleaner, the caretaker, the homemaker, and then teacher again, right? Somebody's going to
Yeah.
teach my kid.
Yeah.
And all this pressure um, was making me really unhappy, but I could not express the unhappiness because this is really not me. Just going on this hamster wheel, right? Doing the motion day by day by day, and it just wasn't working for me. And at some point, I just crumbled, right? And it was a toxic marriage too. And so um, at that point, I was, but because now here's the thing too, when somebody is so used to toxicity, that toxicity became the comfort zone,
Yeah.
right? That's why you keep on, that's why I was jumping from one toxic relationship to the next, and a toxic marriage.
Yeah.
And that I tolerated for like 10 years. At some point, like I was just breaking down. So there was the divorce. And that was like the end of, well, I guess it was not the end of it really, but that was the start of a realization of what has happened before. It
Yeah.
was just years and years and years of me being conditioned and be okay with misery,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so I spent more time with myself because we had split custody, me and my
Mhm.
ex-husband. And so I had like a couple of days, like, a few days for myself that I didn't even know what to do. It's
Yeah.
like, because I was always so busy with
Yeah.
something, right?
What do I do with my hands?
Yeah. It's like, what? Like free time? Like, what is
All
that?
right.
Yeah. Um, but then that stepping out of the marriage was like, that's it. Me stepping out of that environment that was conditioning me.
Yeah.
And that was the start of everything, of me reconnecting with myself.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was, pretty much like the hypnosis
Yeah.
of I guess, I don't know, hardship. At this point, I would say, um, everybody has a story, right? Like good stories are usually like, starting like down below,
Yeah.
right? And then there's the hero's journey.
Hmm.
And then it's that realization that kind of like make you look back
Hmm.
and see that, oh yeah, it's actually a story. I mean, is that a hardship? I don't know, but without that hardship, I won't be here where
Yeah.
I'm so much happier,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm in a different world right now. But if I was content over there at the other side, then I would have had this growth
Yeah.
where I am now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Um, but we could talk also about the growth, like what the realizations that I had. Um, yeah, I was just telling a group of women yesterday about how because when I was so used to being sad and hardship and like when you're stressed, your body produces cortisol, right?
Yeah.
Cortisol is actually more addictive than cigarettes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why people keep on going back, right?
Yeah.
It's like it's hard to be happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can be, but that was also because well, something that I realized was there was this one morning when, oh wow, I hated the mornings
Yeah.
because, oh yeah, who would want to wake up to school that where you get punishment every
Same
single
stuff
day?
every day.
Oh yeah, same thing every day. And also childhood, right? It's like, okay, I have the weekend where I could sleep in. You would think, but no, I couldn't. I had to go to church.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, all right, you sit through all the shaming, more conditioning, right? Like a group of people telling you that you're a sinner and you're of no value, and like all that
Yeah.
stuff. It, so yeah, that was really really diminishing my value as a human, right? Or made me forget. And
Yeah.
so um, this then bring it back to after the divorce. Um, I was still in this job that I hated. Um, didn't really have like meaningful friends, like in friendships and stuff, and so okay, it was so heavy and I was in a mopey mood. Of course, every morning was always like that, right?
Mm.
Because I was going to this job that I did not like. So I was early though. Like I woke up early and I couldn't go back to bed. Okay, like might as well just get up. And I thought, oh, okay, this is just so bad. Like I feel so bad. This feels so heavy, and I'm awake too early. Like, what am I gonna do? It's like,
Yeah.
okay, what about like just playing some music? But you know what? Because I was so used to stressful, mopey mornings, I was resisting turning on that music. Like, just turn it on. Like,
The
but like,
opposite magnetic field.
yeah, right. But I was so comfortable in that misery,
Yeah.
right? In that heaviness that music just was something I wasn't used to anymore.
Yeah.
But I turned it on anyway, right? So it started playing. Ah, this sounds nice. Okay. But I felt like I wanted to dance. I had this urge to dance, but I resisted. I held myself from dancing. It's like, oh, I'm gonna look so stupid, but like, who's watching,
Yeah.
right?
It's
Like,
just you.
like I'm watching me, like I'm judging myself basically. But like, I finally danced anyway. But that was like how like addiction to sadness and misery and how hard it is to get out of it because you're so comfortable, right,
Yeah.
in the negativity.
Absolutely.
um but I went through with the dance one song and it felt so good. I was like, wow, that was the first time actually I had fun
Yeah.
for so long. And I would go to school and at school, right, at the job, it was more just like, okay, get the kids to do their work and uh, submit your lesson plans and take your paycheck and go home. And,
Yeah.
that was the hamster wheel, right?
Yeah.
Um, when I decided to do that again the next morning and then the next morning, and I started waking up a little early, just 10 minutes, just so I could play some music and dance. And then I felt a little happier. And then I would go to work. At some point, I realized that my relationship with the kids changed. Instead of just like being demanding, like, have you done your work and just submit it and I'm going to grade it and blah, blah, blah. I actually had human like conversations with them as humans. you
Yeah.
know and that like I actually cared when they talked to me about their family or like what just happened or whatever. And oh wow, there's love there,
Yeah.
right? There's like that relationship that was never there before.
Yeah.
And so, The 10 minutes became 15 minutes so I could dance two more songs. And I was having so much fun. Like I thought, okay, then the following, okay, the next couple of weeks, the next 3 weeks, I thought, let me add like 5 more minutes. Okay, what could be fun? What is fun right now? What if I learn some challenging dance steps or some fancy moves or some yoga poses that are hard by adding just 5 more minutes, and then I was having so much more fun. I started thinking, what if I add like maybe 5 or 10 more minutes, like what can I do? And I learned about meditation and breath work and ice cold shower, and at some point I learned about juicing, and so
Mm.
I added 20 more minutes so I could wake up and wash the appliances. Well, yeah, after I juice. And yeah, it all takes time, but it's all really nourishing. And it was focusing on nourishing myself emotionally, right? Through the
Yeah.
fun stuff, the dancing and the challenge, and then meditation to reconnect with myself. And months and months of that, I realized that I wasn't reacting anymore. Well, work could be stressful, of course. You
Yeah.
can ask any teachers, but I had a new level of calmness that I didn't have before. Because
Yeah.
before I would be reacting to everything, right? News, and at that point, like there's always something that made me angry, whatever the politician said,
Yeah.
right? Um, and I think that's what a lot of people are dealing with, right? They're so reactive to, well, no, road rage,
Yeah.
right, or
Yeah.
whatever negativity that's going on, and that is because there is this deep seated unhappiness there,
Yeah.
and dysregulated nervous system,
Mhm.
because a lot of us are living in a lot of stress and grinding and all the hard work. Um, but with my method, um, with how I've been working on myself in the morning, giving myself all the fun, the kindness, the love, by focusing on what is the most fun right now, and doing that consistently actually healed my nervous system.
Yeah.
I was such a I became a happier person. And now when I go to work, when I'm lesson planning, the first thing that I ask myself is, how can I make this fun?
Yeah.
And then I realized that that was spreading to my other aspects of life. Like, okay, laundry. How can I make laundry more fun?
Yeah.
Well, you can always make it easier or more fun. I would invite some friends and let it wash, let it dry, and we'll have wine. That's fun.
Yeah.
Or washing the dishes. How can that be fun?
Yeah.
Right? It's like in all these questions I started asking myself, and my lens, how I saw life, started to change. So before, of course, yeah, I told you, like, all the depressive moods, everything was so hard and depressing. And there's always something wrong, right, with the kids, with the school. And after I worked on myself, giving myself all the love and kindness and fun that I could, and healed myself, I'm actually still in the same environment, but I'm having so much more fun. I
Yeah.
have better relationships with the kids. Right? I have better relationships with my colleagues. And the question, how can I make this fun while I'm lesson planning, actually it makes my job so much more fun, right?
Right. Right.
So yeah, that's the story.
You said a lot of good stuff, and I actually want to highlight on a few things. But first, I found something out earlier through the recording I was doing with the other teacher,
Hmm.
that there's scientific proof that says that when you're in depression, the contrast that you see everything in is completely different.
Yeah.
And then when you step out of that depression, it clears right up. And so when you said, I feel like the world was more vivid, I was like, there's proof. I'm not the only person who's experienced this. You also did too. And that's amazing. That's pretty awesome. Um,
Thank
But
you.
you mentioned earlier that when you were a child, you really didn't feel like you had a safe haven except for at the library,
Mhm.
and I can relate to that. When I was a kid, life at home was terrible. I went to school; it was terrible. My only sanctuary was marching band. I loved music. I loved playing music. I loved being in front of the crowd. I loved the torture that I put on myself every day to play my instrument. Not that it was torturous, but holding an instrument up for hours on end was torture,
Wow.
but I loved it. It was enjoyable, and that was my escape, right? And so we always talk about what's that one escape that we run to. And yours was the library, mine was marching band. Other people's have said other things, but that is a common theme across the board. Is
Mm.
that escape from when you're a child? That place that you can find solace. And I'm glad that you found it in the library because it made you a better person.
Yeah, it did. And actually, now that you said that, I think that's how I became a teacher. Um, all right, this is so. All right. When I started school of education, I actually thought that I did English major because I liked reading, and
Yeah.
that's pretty much how I saved my life, right? Like
Mm.
by reading all the time. And English major turned out to be school for teachers,
Yeah.
not exactly English major, but I guess you know maybe that was minor. Well, like it's English teacher,
Yeah.
English teaching basically. But I still read all the English literature and all of that, so that made it really interesting. But then
Nice.
I think what I wasn't really impressed with is the pedagogy that I found a little stiff. And but hey, that was then. That was like, I don't know, 20, 25 years ago. And
What was your favorite book when you were a kid to read?
okay, something I won't say that this is my favorite, but I resonated because it was so many. Like I read the Scarlet Letter when I was like 10,
Wow.
when I didn't even know about Puritans that time. But I just felt like, wow, this woman is going through, like, this is in the Americas, right? But like what happened to her is exactly what a woman would go through here right now in, like, that time in
Yeah.
Indonesia,
Hmm.
right? It's like, so, okay. It's like, oh, wow, I actually understood it. But what really struck me the most, that I still remember until now, like I read this at, like, I don't know, I was probably like 13 or 14. Um, Sybil, I don't know if you've heard of that. They
Yeah.
actually made a movie
Hmm.
out of that. Yeah, the girl with 16 personalities.
Yeah.
And that was supposed to be, like a psychology book on psychology and all that. And I really resonated with the girl. I mean, like, I didn't, it wasn't as bad, like,
Hmm.
as what she went through, the sexual abuse and all that. But for her, having to be someone else in order to survive the moment,
Yeah.
um, that's how I felt. And I was like, huh, maybe that's why I didn't really have any social skills, or I didn't really, I was so disconnected with myself, with my true self. I couldn't be myself. I couldn't be my authentic self,
Yeah.
because of all, that was because you kept on being beaten into, I don't know, like someone's standard, right?
Yeah.
Someone's expectation that doesn't fit you,
Yeah.
doesn't fit your authenticity,
Hmm.
right? So yeah, that was, I don't know, I would say that favorite because it was so scary, but it was so real,
Yeah.
and I still remember it until now. Yeah.
Yeah. You also talked about, you mentioned a lot being beat into submission or beat into the box, and I think that's a lot of people now. In the past, and I don't know how old you are, but for me, I'm 35, and I know when I was a kid, I was beaten to submission, beaten that box in multiple ways. Where whether it was my father, my grandparents,
Mm.
whether it was the military when I joined. You get beat into submission, beat into this box that if you end up going into that box, you lose who you are. You
Yeah.
forget who you are. You forget who you
Mhm.
are at the core. And
Actually.
really, being able to step out of that box and step away from that cookie cutter world. I was expected to be a pastor when I was a kid for church, and then I was expected to be this perfect straight A student when I wasn't. I was getting punished for it, and I guess the best way I can put it is a saying that I heard in the army, and it's the beatings will continue until morale improves, right? So you're gonna get beaten until you're happy,
Hmm. Until you
and
get used to that.
yeah, until you get used to it, right? And then so we learn to thrive in the chaos, and that's why we run to these toxic relationships. That's why we run to addiction, and that's why we get sucked into the mental health disorders, because we've learned to thrive in the chaos. And so chaos becomes a part of our identity later on in life.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Oh, wow. That is so true. It's like, wow, you became comfortable
Yeah.
in the chaos. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I would go on deployments, but for the army, and bullets would fly, and I'd be super comfortable. And that's because like death didn't scare me; my father did. you know,
Mm.
like no bullet is gonna hurt me, but I know my dad could, and so like that.
Wow.
Yeah, so I learned to thrive in the chaos, and that's what it sounded like for you too. You learned to thrive in the chaos and be comfortable in the chaos, but at some point in your life, you accepted that like chaos is not okay for you anymore,
Hmm.
and you stepped out of that. And when you were describing your what you were doing in the morning and your ritual, and listening to music and then dancing and then juicing and giving yourself time, that sounds like self-care 101.
That's pretty much what it is. But then it's in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
when the mind is the cleanest slate. It's the most malleable. It's the most impressionable. So that's the time when your brain is between delta, the deep sleep wave, and theta, the what is called the hypnotic state. And so when you wake up, knowing that you're going to take care of yourself, you're going to nourish and love yourself, or doing something fun, right? Those are the positive seeds, right?
Yeah.
And then it's easier to wake up the next morning because you're giving that feedback, right? You do it, and then it's a fun feedback. Then the next morning it becomes easier and it becomes easier. So that's why I choose the morning, because yeah, you could do the self care later on during the day, right? But then, like with for me, it might be a little harder because then I would be polluted by the environment,
Yeah.
right? Like the negativity, traffic, and all that. So it's easier when you wake up and you're still kind of groggy, when you start the day, and you just like plant seeds in there right away. Then that's easier for you to nurture and grow the positive emotions
Yeah.
when you first set it in the morning, right? And the opposite is true. And I think that's why, um, with people who are depressed, who are unhappy, the opposite is true. When they wake up first thing in the morning, the thought that they think about is the problems from yesterday,
Yeah.
right? And then the next morning and the next morning. And so, what I'm trying to say here is that happiness is a habit,
Mhm.
misery is also a habit. It's a habit of thought,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
So, when you wake up in the morning and you start that habit of happy thoughts, and you consistently enforce that, maybe through the movement, through whatever that will give you joy, and then the next morning you do that again, then you become a happy person after
Yeah.
some time. And the opposite is true.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I'm really big into meditation. I love meditation. It's my space to get quiet and get right with myself, or to recenter, refocus. What have you learned about yourself and through meditation?
Hmm. Through meditation, that my mind can't be quiet. It's so much going on there, right?
Yeah.
There's always all the worries and like things to do and all that. You know, before I meditate, to help me, I do breath work. to
Mhm.
just cleanse whatever energy that's like maybe stuck there that keeps me thinking about stuff. And when I'm more relaxed, my muscles are so much more relaxed, then I meditate. And oh gosh, I during meditations or and breath work, I realized that even now I still have stuff that I still need to process.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't even know what that is. Like I'd be crying. I'd feel like, screaming, but I don't even know why. But, it's all just remnants.
Yeah.
And it's okay. But it also taught me it's okay to feel.
Yeah.
I learned to be safe in my body.
Mhm.
I learned to allow myself to feel because I was not allowed that before,
Yeah.
right? Um, yeah, so those are the biggest things, really.
That's pretty awesome. I didn't realize that like breath work when I first stepped into the realm of meditation and stuff like that, and deep breathing and belly breathing and all this stuff. I didn't realize that you could breathe through just about any pain that you have in your body and
Yeah,
help release that tension.
yeah,
And the first time I did it, I was like, "This is the best thing ever," and all I'm doing is breathing, right? But
yeah,
it was amazing.
yeah. You're opening up all of these, I don't know, channels, right? That were like stuck with whatever gunk, from past. And it's like, I don't know, opening some kind of a tunnel that was probably not there before, or it was like, also clogged. And the air just like whoosh, okay, it needs to come out, and in whatever shape, right? Like,
Yeah.
okay, emotions, crying, or whatever, probably even need to go to the bathroom. That's yeah, but that's like the magic
Yeah.
of breath work.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the last thing I want to hit on before we move on is you were talking about you were reactionary to a lot of things, and I think that as a society, as human beings, we're very reactionary to our surrounding versus proactive, right?
Mhm.
So we react to everything. You said road rage, reactive to our next door neighbor that's making noise, or reactionary to somebody that doesn't get our order right at a restaurant, right? We're so
Mhm.
reactive and so willing to omit that misery to other people that we forget to be proactive, right? We forget to go out there and if we create a positive space for ourselves before we leave the house or before we leave our environment, then it's going to reflect on everybody around us, right?
Yeah.
And you're living proof of that, right? So like you started taking care of yourself, self-care, creating this positive space, and it started reflecting in your students, started reflecting in your coworkers, started reflecting in your relationships, and that's something beautiful. I mean, obviously not everybody's gonna not every it's not gonna rub off on everybody, because they got their own stuff,
Yeah. Yeah.
but you're
Absolutely.
doing the best you can to create a positive space and really influence others around you, so that's amazing.
Oh, thank you. And it's not just that. Of course, everybody's got their stuff, like you said, but because you're already set in this higher vibration and the happier frequency,
Yeah.
you are actually fishing the best of themselves to interact with you,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
And so it's, yeah, of course, my students got their problems too, but because I'm talking to them respectfully and lovingly, and like in a happy and just healthy way of interacting, it's their best selves that interact with me too,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And that's with everyone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so we're gonna move on real quick. I have tattoos, and I see the snake tattoo on
Oh,
your arm. What's that about? I like it.
oh, thank you. So this misconception about snakes, right? I actually feel for them, because that was me too. All this misunderstanding um, of how snakes are like, oh, the villain, right? In the Bible, when they're like, oh, they're offering knowledge, but then
Yeah.
no, that's sinful to know everything. You
Yeah.
should be like you shouldn't know about anything, and then I also have actually two snakes. So one is the yin part of the the yin
Mhm.
version of the snake, and that's the yang. Um, so snakes are actually really, really sweet animals. They're
Yeah.
so grounded and resourceful. They know how to basically, like so fast, and it's like they know how to take care of themselves, basically. And then the rebirth part of it, the shedding, the scales and the skin, and also the youth part of it. It's like, can you tell if a snake is old?
No.
Exactly. No.
You can just tell how much it's eaten.
Right. And so it's like, all that energies that I want every time I look at the tattoo, the snakes, all the energies that I mentioned, the groundedness, the youth, the rebirth. I That's like something that I can always remind myself, right? That, these are the good qualities in life, that I need to embrace more. So yeah, that's and the tattoos are actually done by this Muslim guy in Indonesia. Yeah,
Nice.
and he took a lot of prayer breaks while he was doing this. It's like it's awesome. I love it.
Yeah, yeah. It looks like like a lot of work.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It's like 8 hours each time
Woo.
and three times. So I had to
Wow.
go back there like three times.
A
Yeah,
whole day. A
8 hours
whole
each.
day.
A whole
20
day.
24 hours worth of tattooing. That's awesome. That is pretty cool. Well, Jenny, before we go and before we end it, would you what advice would you give to somebody that's currently struggling in their chaos or in their gunk of life? What would you give to them?
Step out of that hamster wheel of misery. I think that's what I did. Uh, the divorce, at least, that kind of stopped it, right? That interrupted that cycle. And that gave me the space to think and reconnect with myself. And so, if right now you feel like you're in the same hamster wheel or the same routine, right? The same route to work, the same habits, the same routine and order of activities. Why don't you interrupt it somehow? Take a new route to work, add a new habit. Or what about asking yourself, what can you do in 10 minutes that gives you the most joy?
Yeah.
Don't Yeah, whatever, like, anything that you've learned, right? Don't even like think about that, but something that gives you the most exhilaration and happiness when you do that, even at a short time. For me, that was the dance that saved my life, basically, right? Because, oh yeah, I was in a very negative state, or I had suicidal thoughts and all of that. But then it's going back to joy that reminded me of, oh, like the world is worth living for, right? And so interrupt the routine, interrupt whatever, step out of that hamster wheel and lean to something that gives you joy, no matter how short it is. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Jenny, for being here and hanging out with me. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are awesome. You are awesome. And I can't wait to hear about your progress in life and in teaching.
Uh, yeah, absolutely. We should do this again.
We
Absolutely.
will. I promise we will. Anyways, everybody, thank you for hanging out with us. Thank you for listening to Jenny share her story and just her perseverance and her willingness to live a better life. And everybody, have a nice day. Until next time, be good. Much love.